So I'm delighted to say joining us on the We Are West Ham podcast for the first time is sports journalist extraordinaire from the Sun newspaper, the Sun's Midlands Correspondent, good pal of mine, Graeme Bryce. Brycey, it's great to have you on the podcast for the first time, mate. Thanks very much for coming on to give us your thoughts about Forest, that West Ham Forest game, Sunday, 2:00 at the City Ground. The Forest's first home Premier League game for 23 years. It promises to be a huge occasion for their fan. Their campaign, of course, didn't get off to the best of starts at St James's Park on the weekend, a 2-0 defeat. What an occasion it's going to be for the home fans, Brycey, first of all.
It'll be absolutely amazing. The place will be bouncing. And we're still to find out if Forest have got something up their sleeve, because there has been talk that Sir Paul McCartney might be around to sing Mull of Kintyre, their pre-match anthem. So that would be something else if that happened. That might just be on the cards. We're working hard on that one.
Blimey, that would be that'd be the biggest summer signing they've made, wouldn't it? If they're getting a former Beatle out to perform. It's going to be a great atmosphere. I think it's fair to say that most football fans, sort of neutrals, if you like, obviously not fans of the teams in the Midlands that you cover, with whom Forest have a rivalry. Outside of the Midlands, I think most neutrals were pretty pleased to see Forest back in the league after such a long absence, beat Huddersfield in the playoff final, of course, and I think everyone was pretty pleased by that. West Ham obviously still be going there at the weekend, gunning to beat them, but they've certainly made a good go over the summer, haven't they, of backing Steve Cooper financially.
It's $5 million plus, and still working away at other deals. They've just missed out on one today. I believe that Alex Moreno won't be coming from Real Betis. He's said that he wants to stay in Spain, but Steve's shopping list has been a lengthy one. Of course, they had to do it because they had 5 loan players last season who helped them get up. So it wasn't like a Fulham situation when they came up and changed the entire squad around. This has been very much necessity, and Steve's been pushing that. He's been telling everybody that this had to be done. There was no choice. Even if they'd have stayed in the Championship, they would have still made massive changes just because of the loan situation.
Right, yeah, of course. So it's sort of obviously the two sort of main signings they've made, the Dean Henderson and Jesse Lingard, probably the most well known, coming from Manchester United, or having played. I don't know, Lingard was a free agent, but both their last teams were Man United. Henderson on loan there. Do you feel like the signings they've made, is it money well spent? Because obviously people hear those numbers and they think, oh, might take a bit of a while to gel. You mentioned the Fulham situation. Do you think it's money well spent so far?
Time will tell. Only time will tell, because a lot of these guys are new to the Premier League. A lot of the foreigners, Alan Eye up front, has been at Liverpool but never played in the Premier League. And then he went to Belgium and Germany. So he's an unknown quantity. But what Steve needed was guys that had been there, seen it and done it. And Jesse Lingard, he's obviously got somebody with vast experience. And you start from the back, don't you? Dean Henderson, he feels that he should have been Manchester United's number one. So that's confidence for a start. He's an England goalkeeper, of course. So, that's a fantastic signing to get. And it gave the Nottingham fans a real lift at the City Ground to think that he was coming in. Bryce was a big favourite, but he could be a little bit erratic at times. But Dean Henderson is a proven goalkeeper of great quality. He showed that with Sheffield United as well. So, they'll be looking for him to be a massive player for them this season.
Yeah. I mean, just sort of flagship signings, for sure. The Jesse Lingard situation, Brycey, is one that, of course, is particularly intriguing to West Ham fans. There was, it seemed for a long time, I think, in hope rather than expectation, West Ham fans were looking for Lingard to return. My personal opinion on that was I felt the ship has sailed, and I'm personally not too disappointed with the fact that he's gone to Forest instead. What did you make of that situation? Obviously, particularly from a Forest perspective, they must be delighted, but what did you make of all of that?
Yeah, the Jesse Lingard derby now, isn't it? So
exactly, yeah.
I watched him last season at West Ham when he ripped apart Aston Villa, and I just thought this is a Jesse Lingard. You know, when he was with West Ham, I just thought,
of course, yeah.
this is a Lingard that West Ham must dream of. It looked like a great fit. And then, of course, he went back to Manchester United, and things never worked out there. Do you go back? Maybe he's made the right decision there because, you know, expectations would have been so high there. They are at the City Ground as well. Forest fans will expect him to make that difference and add that bit of class. But it's a clean sheet for him again, you know, and maybe at this stage of his career, that's what he needed, really. And again, at West Ham, he would have been one of many sort of big players at West Ham that had been the course. Here, maybe slightly less expectation. It's Nottingham Forest, and he can just get on and get his career back on track again. But if it's a Jesse Lingard we saw at West Ham and at Manchester United before that, in his heyday, then he's a great signing, you know, and he'll bring great experience and creativity to the Forest team.
Yeah, absolutely. There was some talk, Brycey. It's generally accepted, I think, that West Ham were in the region. Their offer was in the region of around sort of 110-ish thousand a week is what they were offering. Reports suggesting Forest paying him considerably more than that. First of all, do you think that's sort of accurate? And secondly, what a lot of fans have been asking, if that is the case, where's that money coming from?
Yeah, well, the actual word is that he took less money than West Ham offered to go to Forest. So that's the latest one. But we know football clubs, they don't always tell the truth, do they? They put out what they want to put out, and so do agents and so do players. So I would imagine that only the guys that were involved in the deal will know exactly. But certainly, if the West Ham fans are coming with the monopoly money and everything for Lingard, the Forest fans are now saying, well, actually, he's come for less.
Yeah.
Just because the project appealed to him more, Steve Cooper was really keen to get him in. So, but whether we believe that, we're just cynical old hacks, aren't we? We don't believe stuff like that, will do we? So, you know, whatever the money side of it is, Forest have spent big, 85 million. You know, Villa spent over 100 million when they first came up. What they've got is Evangelos Marinakis is a proven football man at Olympiacos, controversial figure, but he has backed them to the hill. And if you think of the TV money is generally over 100 million, you know, they're speculating to accumulate. They want to be there and they want to be players in the Premier League. They don't want to be a yo-yo club. They don't want to be a Norwich. So spending and they're ambitious. The ambition is massive. They've also got a new CEO in Dane Murphy, who did very well at Barnsley before. He's come in. I think he's only 36 and an ex-player. He's an American. And he's very ambitious. So it's speculate to accumulate, isn't it? But Marinakis have got a football guy. It's not some guy coming in from nowhere and doesn't get football at all. You know, he's done it out in Greece. He's experienced Champions League football. And ultimately, that'll be the aim. But there's so many teams in England that say the same thing in the Premier League.
Yeah, true. I mean, you know, even at the other end, Man United are an example, isn't it? Is how you spend it as much as what you spend, and sort of the football club structure and that sort of thing.
It might take a while for this team to gel, and West Ham, it might be the best time to get them. First game of the season. When you bring in 12 new signings and you're still looking for more, you know, that's a massive turnaround. But they've grafted them in rather than, it's not wholesale change. You've still got the basis, your Steve Cooks and Scott McKenna's at the back. Joe Worrell's been made the captain. He's a local lad. And there's a strong spine to the team that are local boys. Yates in midfield is a local lad. And Brennan Johnson, of course, who was a massive star for them last season. He could end up being the best signing of the lot, just persuading him to stay. Right. Because obviously Bournemouth were chasing him for much of last season. He had other offers in the summer, but he's decided to stay at Forest. Obviously his dad was a legend there as well, so it will be interesting to see how he does.
Yeah. No, it is an intriguing situation, really, because like you mentioned the Fulham thing, people obviously think back to that. But yeah, I mean, with Steve Cooper in charge, it sort of feels like it'll be okay because one of the most, I think he's finally starting to get a bit of credit that he's due, really, but he still seems vastly underrated by most people. And I suppose this season will be the true test of how he gets on. What do you make of sort of Cooper's impact, and how do you fancy him pitting his wits against the best in the Prem this season?
He'll be doing extremely well at top last season because when he came in, when he replaced Chris Houghton, they only had 1 point from 21 games. It was the worst start Forest have made in 108 years, and they went on to win promotion. And actually, Steve Cooper being the type of guy he was, or he is, he was actually disappointed they never went straight up. The playoff, don't get me wrong, Wembley was brilliant. They had the day in the sun, and they had the civic reception after. They were at the town hall, great. But he wanted to go up straight away, and he was disappointed they dropped some points at the end of the season. So previous Forest managers have come in, and there's been all the heritage of the club, the double European Cup wins. All those photos were taken down in the past by certain managers that didn't fancy it. The weight of the jersey was a bit too heavy for some of them. Steve Cooper's come in. He's put all those photos back. Yeah. He's brought in the legends of the club, the Gary Birtles of this world. All of them have been invited back. They meet up for the odd beer, and he picks up about Brian Clough and what their time was like. And he just laps up. He just loves the Cloughie stories and getting a real feel for the club. And he's done that. He did a good job at Swansea. He's won a lot. So, the credentials are there. Now it's the Premier League, of course. But I've every confidence he'll make a good fist of it.
Yeah, so you before we move on to that game then on the weekend, Bryce, you fancy them to stay up, do you?
I do. I think so. I think that it's not a Norwich situation. The City Ground's going to be a horrible place for a lot of clubs to come to. It is a really good atmosphere. It's got that lovely mix between the old main stand and then the more modern other three sides of the ground. But if you look at last season, what they did in the FA Cup, they knocked out Arsenal there. Yeah. Leicester put a strong team out and they beat them 4-1. And Brendan Rodgers was shell-shocked after that game. He didn't know what had hit them that day. And then, of course, they played Liverpool, who squeezed through 1-0. But Forest gave a good showing of themselves. So when the City Ground's bouncing, they're a formidable team at home. And that'll probably be the key to it. I think Cooper will organise them away from home. He'll have them well drilled defensively, and they won't give much away. I would put Newcastle at the weekend down to experience. First game back, a lot of emotion around it. Difficult place to go, and by all accounts, they didn't acquit themselves that brilliantly. But he's a coach. They'll have their West Ham are a good team. I can't wait for it. I think it'll be a cracking match.
Yeah. It'd be a belter. Will you be there on Sunday, Bryce? Are you otherwise engaged in your Midlands duties?
I hope so. I do coach as well on the side, so I may have a game with my team at Tamworth. But if I'm working, I'll be there. So and I'll certainly be catching it on the box. So if I'm not there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So what do you think then? You mentioned briefly touched on it already, that it may be a good time for West Ham to play them. I was at London Stadium yesterday for West Ham's opening game of the campaign, 2-0 against Manchester City, 2 Erling Haaland goals. No real shame in it, but it was one of those just like, I never really enjoy watching Man City games generally because they're just so good at football. It's so robotic. They don't really make any mistakes. And it's never, unlike when you play Liverpool, which can sometimes be, although they're really good, it can be a bit more free-flowing and lively, and you might still get the odd chance here or there. They're more entertaining games. Man City don't really, they just suffocate you with possession all game, so it's not always most entertaining to watch. That was certainly the case. We've been trying to keep that in a little bit of context earlier on. Jonesy and I on the podcast were saying, look, it's Man City, don't get too far ahead of yourselves yet. But it was frustrating performance, to say the least. So, what do you think then Sunday? How do you think the game's going to play out, sort of style-wise, first of all, before we do score predictions?
The first thing I would say is that good managers don't tend to lose 2 games in a row. That's why they're good managers.
Yeah.
They'll go back to the drawing board. They'll look at what went wrong at the weekend, David Moyes and Steve Cooper. So, again, I think it's going to be really, really intriguing. I think it's going to be exciting. And I think that Forest will want to come at West Ham. They'll want to get in the front foot and they'll want to get the crowd up. It's not going to be cagey at the start of the game because they want to be in the front foot. They want to get the fans excited. If they play the ball around and they're cagey, that atmosphere will die down. So I think Forest will come for it. And I think West Ham, David Moyes is smart enough to understand that. And I think they'll look to pick off Forest on the break. Forest, again, like have that 3-man defence that they play.
Right.
They'll play with wingers as well. So they're creative, but they're solid as well. They're well drilled. It's just, can you get them at a time when not everybody is exactly sure of where they should be and when, and that the transition, to use a coaching term. It's that transition. It's getting it right between when to attack, when to sit back, how quickly you get back. Don't leave yourself exposed. So I think it's going to be a real sort of tactical game of chess, but it'll be frantic chess, if you like.
Yeah.
I think both teams are good on the front foot, aren't they? So I think that'll be good.
It's funny you mentioned that, Brycey, because whenever I hear, obviously this was more the case last season, but whenever I'd hear that the opposition views we do, whenever I'd hear teams go, they're going to come at us, we'd always be delighted with that because Moisey, specifically away from home, is more than happy to let the other team have the ball, soak up a bit of pressure, use Jared Bowen, Manuel Lanzini, Pablo Fornals, and Mikel Antonio, and pace on the break. Declan Rice transitions the ball really quickly as a powerful runner. So we're always happy to just let other teams have the ball and hit on the counter attack, particularly away. So it's always a positive when I hear that.
Well, it's getting that. It's when they creep forward. If you're pinging balls into the corners, if their fullbacks have bombed on, and then you've got Bowen. If you're pinging balls into the corners, you're dragging out the central defenders in areas they don't want to be. So I can see why it suits West Ham.
Yeah. So fingers crossed that is the case, and I know Moisey's become pretty adept at that. So that's a positive. I'm just trying to figure out exactly how many goals Jesse Lingard's going to score, Brycey. In my prediction this week, I'm feeling a 2-2 draw. I just sort of think there might be goals in it. West Ham feel a bit stuttery with Lingard getting both, of course. But what do you expect from Lingard? And then give us a score prediction for the game before we let you go.
Okay. Lingard, point to prove, won't he? They'll want to get the ball to him. They want to get the crowd on their feet. They want to get him played in and Brennan played in. Big Akinwuye up front, he's a unit, similar in many ways, to West Ham style. Big target man up front. They'll use him to try and bully the West Ham defenders, and then they'll look to get Brennan and they'll look to get Lingard in around them. Do you know something? I don't want to sit in the fence, but I think your 2-2 sounds all right.
Yeah.
Your 2-2 sounds pretty sensible. Strange for you, by the way. But But I'll go, I don't want to be exactly like you, so I'll go Lingard will score 1 and Brennan Johnson will get 1.
But 2, you like the sound of the 2-2.
2 sounds all right. I think it's going to be, there'll be goals in it. I don't see it being goalless, but hey ho. I'll probably just death there.
Exactly. Well, Brycey, look, if you get along to the game, hope you enjoy it. We really appreciate you coming on for the first time. Bit of a busy old season for you now with all the Midlands teams. Exactly.
Going all the time.
We'll
get West Brom next season. That will be 5.
Nah, you're joking. We don't need them back in the Premier League, mate. Don't need.
Are you going yourself, Phil?
No, not this week. No, I would. So I went over there on Sunday, but the away trips to Europe at the end of last season sort of cleared me out with financially, annual leave, time wise, and where the patience of the girlfriend's running a bit thin as well. So I've got to pick and choose my battles and my games this season, mate.
I saw a bit of West Ham in pre-season. The Rangers game, I watched that one.
Oh, yeah.
So it wasn't the best result for West Ham, but it was early days, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, look, Bryce, we really appreciate having on Graeme Bryce there, Midlands correspondent from The Sun for the Opposition View ahead.